Hello and welcome back to the studio. Today we're going to do a sonic experiment in Bitwig Studio. What I'm trying to do is I'm going to recreate the Conductive Labs Noodler sequencer in software using all or mostly free software. So here's what we've got. If you're not familiar with the Noodler, the Conductive Labs Noodler sequencer, it is a 4-track ambient sequencer. One track is a bass note, one track is pads, and 2 of the tracks are arpeggios. The cool thing about the Noodler, though, is that you play it like a keyboard, but it has one note at a time. You play whatever the root of the scale you pick is, and all of the synthesizers play in that chord of that scale. And you can go through chord progressions just by pressing a button on the panel. One finger soundscapes, everything running from just pressing one key. So that's kind of the idea that I wanted to try and do. And I think it's doable because, well, I know it is because I did it. But let me show you how I did it. This is what we're going for. This is the end result that I am trying to make. So this is one note. I'm going to open up the keyboard here. I'm going to click one note. If I change the note, the whole soundscape changes with it. Okay, so how do we do that? Okay, first off, turn off Supermassive. First thing we want to start with is a bass line. Okay, so first thing is you pick a bass sound. I just pulled up Vital, picked a couple of random wavetables and a sub oscillator that's a sine wave. Added in an LFO, a very slow LFO to modulate the wavetable and open and close the filter here. Added some chorus in, delay, and reverb in it just to kind of smear together. Actually, you don't even really need reverb on the thing because I've got Supermassive on it. Okay, that's what our bass sound is. That works. Right? And since this is just a bass note, it just plays whatever note you play on the keyboard, whatever you press. You play a G, plays a G. You play a C, plays a C. Next part is where it gets interesting. We want to add pads to this. Well, first thing I want to do, pick a good pad sound. So I pulled up Hive 2 by Yuhi. This is running natively in Linux also. A really great, fantastic, complex synthesizer, which I can barely use this thing. It's so crazy. But it has a lot of really good presets in it. So what I did was I took an analog pad preset. And took this LFO. Used it to modulate the cutoff filter for this, dropped this one down an octave, and up the attack on both of these oscillators to kind of make it more flowy, less like an electric piano and more like pads. And that's the sound we've got. So if we want to play a chord, sounds like this. Right? So, how do we get it to play chords from one note? Well, using a plugin called Tone Space. This is a Windows native plugin running under a wine bridge. What this does is this takes whatever note you feed it and it spits out a chord instead. So if I play one note, watch, turn this off, play one note, go on. Now spits out a chord. So here you can see the settings on the right. I'll run through these real quick. Key of C, it's in minor. There are all kinds of options. Even can do Persian and really crazy stuff. So if you want to get into some of that, you can really have fun with that. You have your channel filter, chord filter, sorry. Right? And up to sevenths. So that basically limits the number of voices it puts out. You can change the voicing. You can make it all root position or first, second, third inversions, open voicings all the way down to spread, plus, plus, whatever that is. Right. If you want to, you can specify it to always have sevenths. And it will rotate through the voicings of that. Right here, you have trigger, MIDI triggers note. You can also have mouse clicks or click on the cell and then the MIDI note will trigger whatever highlighted. But for now, we're just going to do this. And chord assist, fit chord to scale. You put it to best, it will always play the same chord or a note. You put it to cycle. It will change the voicings, go through them. Up here you can see G minor 7, G minor 7 sharp 5, 7 says 4, and it'll just go through them. MIDI in, you can set this to whatever MIDI channel you want or whatever comes in on the VST host channel all. If you set it to play a MIDI track, it will actually play a MIDI file where you select that. MIDI out goes to the VST host. You can also route this to a specific other program or instrument or whatever, and whatever channel you want on. So here we have chords. Okay, so that's good for pads. What I did for this, I didn't feel like the pads really stood out from the bass that much, so I added in a note transpose block and transposed everything up an octave. So it sounds like this. So we add that in with the bass. It sounds like this. Pretty good start. We can always tweak the sounds if you want to. The idea here is the functionality of it. Okay, so on to our next voice. We want an arpeggio sound, some kind of pluck, but not a bright pluck. We want a dark, round, plucky sound. So I went digging through the tone bin and I found, turn all these off, and I found the Tyrell N6 plugin. This is a free synthesizer plugin by Yuhi. Completely free, runs Linux natively. this is the stock Wurlitzer electric piano preset. It sounds like this. It's alright. We can make it better though. So we're going to do the same trick with this as we did with the pads. We're going to open up tone space. And we're going to set it to minor scale. Chord filter. I'm going to set it to sevenths again. Spread voicing, MIDI triggers note, assist fit chord to scale cycle. You can also set it to fit chord to scale best, which will not go through the voicings quite so frequently. MIDI in VST host, MIDI out VST host, and it will do this. Again, I'm just playing one note at a time. So how do we turn that into an ARP sequence? Well, we just pull up Bitwig's stock arpeggiator plugin, changed it to 2-octave range, 16 steps. Didn't mess with any of this stuff. Right here, what I did was there's all these different presets, and I set it to low and up. So what this does is it repeats the lowest note and then arpeggiates the others alternately above it. And it sounds like this. Big Aperture Science vibes there. I like that. That's going to sound great. Try mixing it in with the pads and the bass. It's okay, doesn't stand out much. Let's turn on this note transpose block and bump it up an octave. I like that. We want a little more flavor to it, so I'm using a program called Sequent. This is by Loomer Audio. I actually use this a lot of my stuff. This has looper, filter, distortion, gate, pan, and delay blocks that can all be sequenced and randomized. And in the routing up here, you can actually have multiple parallel chains and feedback things. Really, really flexible plugin if you do any kind of randomize and glitch stuff. Anything like that. It can do everything from like broken electronic sounds all the way to like just crazy backwards reverse ping pong delays and things. It's pretty slick. This is a paid plugin, but you don't need to have this to make it, you know, to use this, the functionality of it. I'm just using this to add a little variety to the sound. So all this does is it ping pongs the sound back and forth randomly. Turn it on and you can see what it does. Pretty simple. This is, like I said, it's made by Loomer Audio, and it does run in Linux natively. So there's our first ARP. Got our bass, our pads, and our first ARP sound. That's pretty good. So for our last track, we're going to do the same thing we did with the third one, except I want to find a pluck sound that is a little brighter and it sticks out more over the top. So let's turn these off. And I use synthesizer called Surge XT. You may be familiar with this one. It's also free and also runs in Linux natively. And what I was looking for is some kind of FM kind of plucky thing. That works pretty well. All I did for this preset was bumped up the attack just a hair to get rid of a little bit of the transient. Would be too harsh. But that's about it. That's the rest of the preset is stock. Okay, so we're gonna give it the same treatment that we did to the Tyrell N6. We're gonna add tone space to make it a chord. This. Same thing. Word filter, we're gonna set it to 7th. I keep forgetting to do that. C minor, 7th chords, second inversion, open, MIDI, fit chord to scale best, VST in, VST out. And it sounds like this. We're gonna add in the arpeggiator. This time, instead of going low up, we're gonna do a preset called high and down, which repeats the highest note and then pings and arpeggiates the rest of them downwards in alternating steps. Set it to 2 octaves, 16 steps, and it sounds like this. I think that'll work. I think it would sound better up an octave. Give it more of a music box kind of sound. We also want to play with it. We want to smear the sound a little bit. It is kind of bright and plucky. We don't want to remove that, but we also want to kind of wash it into the rest of the sound a little bit. So I'm using a delay program called Chow Matrix. This is a phenomenal delay plugin by Chow DSP. It's free, 100% free, and also runs in Linux natively. And it has the unique feature of not only can you stack multiple delay lines off of this, and each one of these branches is a separate delay line. And the more left or right they are determines how much they're panned left and right. But you can also sequence and modulate the feedback, the panning, low pass, high pass, pitch. You can actually pitch some of the delays, burst, distortion, and all of these can be manipulated with this insanity slider here. So the more you slide the insanity slider, more these things modulate and moves. It sounds like this. Obviously that's too much. We don't want that much motion. But I'll bring it back down to here and reset. And that will give us just a hint of wash. Down here, we've got our dry signal, wet signal. Sounds like that, like this. Let's see. Sounds great. Add in the other 3 voices, and then we get this. This is just one note at a time. Now for the final touch. Valhalla Supermassive. This is a Windows plugin that I have running through Winebridge, but it's very good. I have it on the default dark matter preset. I didn't mess with it. It already sounds epic. And it sounds like this. Back to 1. And that's it. Using a handful of free plugins, you can do this too. Now, just for fun, I'm going to completely blow your mind here. I'm going to go into the 3 tracks that use tone space. And I'm going to go into each one and I'm going to change it from C minor to C major. Like this. Tone space. C. Come on. And see what it does. Man, that just totally changes the whole feel of it. But it's the same exact sound, just transposed into a different scale, gives it a whole different feeling. Man, that's really satisfying. So there you go. That's how, using really simple tools, you can create your own one-note ambient sound engine from scratch. Enjoy it, and I hope you did enjoy it, honestly. And thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Have fun.